In 1888, a very hot button of contention was Galatians 3:19. And what law is spoken about? What law is our schoolmaster? So they're going on and on about this. They're arguing back and forth. Lots of the general conference leaders were saying, no, it's the ceremonial law. And it was there to bring us to the time of Christ. And then he came, and now that's done. And Jones and Wade were saying, well, actually, it's the moral law, and they also clarified moral law and the ceremonial law, pointing the individual to Christ, guiding him there. And then when we enter into Christ, we are no longer under the law. And they were going on and on about this. And lots of times, looking back on 1888, that's what people believe. Now, when you read the Ellen G. White 1888 materials, which is these 4 big volumes, almost 2,000 pages, she says that Galatians 3:19 and the whole dispute over the law that they were having, which was the big hot button, was a distraction. She says that it was a minor point. She says the real point was Christ and his righteousness and justification by faith, and that they were using that little thing to hang on. And so it was keeping them back from seeing the real thing. But the real reason why they rejected the message is because they could not accept the truth of justification by faith. Why? And hopefully this will help us be able to see clearly. Okay, wait a second. They rejected this. What we've seen from all these statements, and we can go over it again, and there's many more statements that we'll go through in another article. What we've seen is that justification by faith is an experience of bringing someone from death in trespasses and sins, which could be someone who commits one sin, because you're guilty of one, you're guilty of all, to entering into the life of Christ, not as a theory, the literal life of Christ. And what life does he have? He has a sinless life. That is justification by faith. The reason why they could not accept it, and the reason why many today, and I hope that's not today as in literally today and those here, but many in this age will also reject it, is because we're walking around sinning, thinking that we're justified. But what this message told them in 1888, and what this message is telling us today, is that if we have sin in our lives, we are not justified. That's not something to discourage anyone. That's something to say, hey, wait, we need to have a true view of this, because only the truth will set us free, right? And so, seeing this, what we're to be brought to understand, we can go to the next slide, actually. Speaking of the 1888 message, Ellen White said that it was a life-giving message, a life-giving message was needed to give life to the dry bones. Now, unfortunately, as we read in the statement earlier about how the message was rejected, how it was not permitted to work that which it was supposed to work. There is the resurrection of the dry bones. That's a reference to a vision that Ezekiel saw in chapter 37. And that's something that we'll go into in some detail probably sometime during this week. What the dry bones of Ezekiel really referring to. So this message came to give life to those dry bones. The dry bones were dead. They were just dry bones in this valley, no life, and it's a symbolic prophecy as we get to, showing that these people who are depicted by these dry bones, which it says to be the whole house of Israel, have no spiritual life in them. They're dead. It says their bones were very dry, and they cried out, our bones are dry, and we are cut off, utterly cut off for our parts is what it says in King James, or utterly cut off. And what there has to be in order to receive justification by faith, to receive the life of Christ, we have to come to the point of realizing our own condition of being totally dead in trespass and sins. We'll see in the study of Romans 6, we'll be going through that chapter, and we'll see some of Wagner's comments on it, where he points out that when we call ourselves Christians but still have any sin in our lives, what has happened is it's not that we have been justified and are now just going on getting rid of sin and sanctification. He says, if we're still sinning, know ye not that whom ye obey, his servants ye are, to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey? That's Romans 6. In other words, it's saying, if we yield ourselves to sin, if we commit a sin, that's showing that we are a servant of sin. And one servant only has one master. We don't have two masters. Christ and Satan are not in unity. So if we still have sin, that's showing us that we are a servant of Satan. Now, all of us here, are not willing servants of Satan. This is what Reagan was pointing out, that the Christian who is still sinning, and he points out that can they truly be called a Christian, what happens is that we go through this experience that we typically put the title of justification on. Because we all have had an experience in our lives of a change that has happened, been in the world, not really caring about God, not really caring about the Bible, and then something happens and all of a sudden we care. That's what's going on in Romans chapter 7. And that is the experience that Wagner calls unwilling service of Satan. But this experience of justification is something that has been missing for many years from the church, but is something that is here as a reality for anyone to experience if they want it, that anyone can have justification by faith and be free from sin, no longer walk sinning even occasionally. Isaiah chapter 1 says, the sinner and the transgressor shall perish alike. There's judgment coming upon the house of God, and we must not be found with a stain or spot of sin on us. So that's the message that we have. It's the message of the resurrection of the dry bones. And so we have to examine Ezekiel 37, see what the prophecy identifies as the thing to give us life. And so, just a little hint, it says the Spirit. So we have to find out who that is or what that is.